back. I am. I'm back. Was not here in the southern part of in Babylon. Call it for now. That's pretty cool here. I like chill. We have more amenities, you know. Cafes now. Jackson. But I think I can. But yeah, no. Back. I was in Peru. Get this there, but I did. Pulling it. A family. In places. Got a haircut too. Over there, over here. That shit was like down. But not much else happening. Hoping for some tracks to get in it. Monday happen. Random ass time to stream at. I have work. President's Day. Like I guess the government kinda. Yes, I work for the feds. I'm sorry. Bro, I'm bald. Oh. Yeah, that's really it. Watching videos.
Is that we live in this society of very large, complex systems that nobody really understands. And everyone basically tries not to think about it. That in itself is going to fuck you up.
Yo, what's up?
For years, I have been teaching people.
Hold on. Fuck, what am I gonna do, bro? Discord is low-key cooks now, isn't it? Or a creator. So I'm trying to change the color of my, or not my speaker, my fans, on the computer. Come I could upgrade my fucking. What do we send? Discord. Not asking for. Okay. Delete. I know you could have fucking update your graphic, your motherboard.
Won't be my fiance, sorry I can't do that. Won't be my fiance, sorry I can't do that, babe. G6 when I'm sliding in, G5 on my waist.
A couple of thousand, what I made, I'm finna get ATM. Know what you gon' make me drown, I get out because I'm pimp. Look like 19 on me, it's down on my hill. I flew out and fuck up here for rounds.
Started moving hot, G5 shooting shots. I can call the brodies, but I won't. Just know that I'm trying that chop. J like Lee, why you start moving dolly? The hate so real, I'm already known. Yeah, I just sipped this shit. Wait, I just spilled my walk. I'm dropping Jimmy Dean in a bitch, and I'm fake checking my watch. Diamonds be dancing and gleaming and shit. The nigga in front of me can't even walk. I don't really like to say it, but when she don't listen, it's turning me off. I don't really like to think about it. I know that it's just on the fraud. Catch his ass, we spank him just like shit lazy. We sending him off. She don't know. I just want thank you. That's all I want. If you want me, say it. You don't got play, you don't got a front. Bitch, nigga, check my swag. You know I'm booted up.
Pop a perk, I'm booted up. I came up, this ain't no luck. Peep my swag, she wanna fuck. You know I keep that fire tucked. He not ready for no smoke. Pussy call a fire truck. My name ring bells like alarms do. Like where the fuck Beyonce at? She got me hurt like cardiac. Won't be my fiance, sorry I can't do that, babe. G6 when I'm sliding in, G5 on my waist. Yeah, told him bring some vibes in. Pull up to my place. If she coming through, I'm sliding in. Paint all on her face. Thought I told you, better not try none. Get his ass about the way.
A couple of thousand, what I made, I'm finna get ATM. Know what you gon' make me drown, I get out because I'm pimp. Look like 19 on me, it's down on my hill. I flew out and fuck up here for rounds. The cardigan, but seeing what a
I like the beat. The beat. It's like, it's got me dissociated.
My cousin, smoking down, split. Time I have my other cousin, get police a damn tell. To me, you don't mean nothing. Can fake love is what you give. I'm the robbing and busting, that's not how I wanna live. Money got me positive.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've processed one single word though.
Right.
I
know that's how I gotta start. I have a bad day, you don't need spill. They say how you ain't go.
Pill.
They don't even know my heart cold. Don't open up these niggas a bad door. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you. I step in the bed, feel like snake back from Cobra. You wonder when I slip on sofa. Don't come back when it's rain. It's over.
It's like a being looted track.
A couple of thousand, what I made, I'm finna ATM. Know it's gonna make me drown. I get out because I'm been on. Look like 19 on me, it's down on my head. I flew out and fuck been full round. The car ain't hit, but sin, water found. Ain't more than a clutch in, 30 around club. I'm with my cousin, smoking down split. Time I have my other cousin, get police a damn tail.
Niggas tryna fit in with the gang. Niggas tryna fit in with. Niggas tryna fit in with the gang.
All as well. Sorry, track. Comment WDFB. WDFBA. Right.
Wanna be my fiance, sorry I can't do that. Wanna be my fiance, sorry I can't do that, babe.
Okay. Did I just not notice that was the hook?
Or giving little
Sorry.
tours.
Why does the sun have to hit me like right here? I want the sun to hit me. Hasn't been. Shit. See how pale I am, bro? Can't even see me. I'm like fucking translucent. More sun. I'm done with the winter.
On the physical structure of the internet. The seminar manifests it, concretizes it, and puts a kind of handles on this big system that is no longer existentially terrifying. The weight you see
And I was
off people
just,
when you do that is extraordinary. It
I was just
transforms
down
it from being this completely
south
unknowable
where it's like
force that just acts on
summer.
their lives
Thought I
into
was
being
gonna
a
get
thing in
tan.
their lives that they can see the edges of and conceptualize a little bit better. I call it technological literacy.
I also didn't try to
For
get
me,
burnt.
learning to code was what did that.
Burned.
A feeling of competence in the face of very complex systems. This is something that we aren't taught. Generalized problem solving, inquisitiveness, or how to learn. I think that by running away from the internet, we are reinforcing sometimes its power and ability over us. I really like this. They can
Good. Liberian girl talk about being on the internet.
see the edges of
No, it's
and
not that bad.
conceptualize a little bit better.
Kind of bad, but it's kind of all right. Today's age, if you live in like, or like fucking, I don't know, just in a modern place. Kind of need it. Taking an Uber. I don't know. There's some stuff. Like, damn it, it's too convenient not to. Like WhatsApp, if you Instagram, fucking Twitch. I mean, YouTube is the new TV. Twitch is as well.
I think there is a difference in using the internet in a way which allows you to see the edges of it or its limitations that are ever changing, and a way in which you're simply giving into its algorithmic form. But to just run away from it
Like,
because
a lie.
you're scared.
Girls be spitting, bro. They be spitting on pause. and like, they make good video essays.
Scared of the algorithm reinforces that it has this power over you, and I think maybe increases your lack of agency around technology. And I think as technology gets
I don't really watch
bigger
her
and
like,
scarier,
but
it is very important that we
pretty
increase
decent.
our agency around it. At the same time, I came across an interview with a philosopher unknown to me named Gilbert Simondon.
Ow, ow, ow.
Simondon had written
I'm watching this. I'm like, how do people sit here? They actually collect all this information. It's like kind of like a school project. Not gonna lie.
about alienation that wasn't due to technology, but due to our lack of knowledge about technology.
Like, if this was shown for a presentation, it'd probably be better for
By treating technology as a mere tool,
hating people.
reducing it to its utility and denying it its inherent dignity and complexity, and by elevating it to mystical status, seeing it as an autonomous threat or an alien entity beyond human understanding. I know that it's almost like I'm saying two things at once. It's almost like I'm saying the internet is this like mystical plane where we leave our current existence, and at the same time I'm also saying it is made up of numbers that we can understand and can reach the edges of. And I think that anything that is mystical about it, as much as I am saying both these things, anything that is mystical about it is also because
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
it's kind of
Fucking
we
magical,
made it.
mystical
like it comes
place.
from us in the ways that we are very unknowing and mystical.
Like, I'm in
And
another
by
room and you
only
can
saying
hear me
that it's,
live.
Just numbers, we do deny it its inherent
Their country, another
dignity, because
state,
most
maybe.
things that we create do have this like dignity to them. I don't have a complete answer to this, and I'm not a philosopher. Do you think that like holding these things at once is just giving me a very expansive view of my place in the internet, what I want to view on the internet? And to me, it makes me want to know and understand and learn more, not
I like the internet.
tap out. That's where I want to leave us in terms
I
of
hate it when it's
what
like
we're exploring. I
on
said
the
at the beginning I was
phone
going to talk
and, like,
about a little bit more of my own internet usage at
when
the
it's
end.
on the
Just
computer,
like
I don't know,
personal
I enjoy it.
strategies, because as much as I'm like, oh, I'm in defense of being online here, I do think
No, it's
it's
the same shit,
hard
but
to feel like you have agency online. There was a
I think
piece I found
maybe
in
feeling a
research for
keyboard
this called Internet
and
as a
its clicks
Practice
is nice.
by Dan Hunt. Perhaps we'd sit down to our computers as we would a meditation cushion or a yoga mat,
It's not in my
without
pocket.
expectation of what might occur, without outcomes in mind, and with a reverence for the ritual that
You can follow me everywhere. I have to come to it. Little bribing on big orb. Yo, you're doing feedback? What's up, Emily? Yes, I am.
Late night with my blitz, I niggas spent trying to get niggas skunked, yeah. Late night with my blitz, I niggas spent trying to get niggas skunked, yeah. Late night with it, bet her she got a man, but I still gon' crush some. I'm at a 10 out of party and she got a body when eat me for lunch, yeah. Niggas, you get out your feelings, you get it some money, and I care how you feel. I put up money on top of your head, nigga, that's not how you real. Niggas start waving that white flag out with the fully and they got peeled. Ain't fearing you, bitch, only God I fear. Ain't night on my blick and the bitch ain't care. They wanna talk about the money you touch, you ain't touch these bitch, let niggas just touch. They try to tell everybody you crush. All that fuck claim shit get you crushed. I'm in the air, my girl ain't care. Fully just followers get tryna see him. 9 millimeter, a fuck nigga see him. 10 mil globus can't get near him. I'm in the air on my truck. You know it's two sides, little baby. Girl, how you tellin' a lie? Touchdown in the O, Togo, I need fully gloves. Touchdown in the A, they gonna get you popped.
29 in age, 29 in age. Late night with my blitz, I niggas spent trying to get niggas skunk, yeah. Late night with this bet, her she got a man, but I still gon' crush some. I'm at a 10 at a party and she got a body, won't eat me for lunch, yeah. Niggas, you get out your feelings, you get it somebody, and I care how you feel. I been up money on top of your head, nigga, that's not how G real. Niggas start waving that white flag.
Fuck even sent this in. What was that? Sent that in. Pretty fire though. It's Hassan. I'll be talking to the mayor of Chicago.
All right, we got the Chicago mayor in the building, everybody. A pleasure to have you. I've become a big
Why
fan
is he
of your city as of late. You were on the Jam Pod too, I think, right?
Yeah.
Love those guys.
They really are a great group of young brothers there doing some great work, elevating the consciousness of America. So it's always dope to see the next generation of conscientious thinkers and influencers that understand the political moment that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to duke it out in the marketplace. The mayor's mic is low. Hold on,
Just be a little louder. So,
yeah, be a little bit louder.
Yeah.
You're used to it though. You go out.
Well, I was hoping to come. It's LA. I thought I was gonna come and chill a little bit. So I'll
Why
bring
is he
some
in
of that
LA
Chicago
and not in
energy. I got
Chicago,
you.
Yeah.
bro?
It's, no, we don't chill out.
Come
here.
on.
It's also colder in LA than usual. I feel like.
Burr.
Yeah.
Yeah, that very tough 60 degrees. That's
But
always tough to withstand.
But-
Like you're in a full sweatsuit.
Yeah, I'm cold right now. This is I'm chilly. I'm chilly in the house. But for you, it's like this is t-shirt weather.
Man, this is comfortable, man. We could play a double header in baseball in weather like this.
Yeah. Brandon Johnson, everybody.
What's up, y'all?
Thank you so much for coming. Obviously, progressive mayors and socialist mayors are at the forefront of the
Tell me I'm her number one. She say I'm her number one, but I know she lying though. You must think I'm stupid, huh? I know how this shit gon' go. Can't be tied down, baby. When you catch me, I'm dolo. Only 2 seats in this motherfucker. My Louis Duff will be riding shoddy. Only 2 doors on that motherfucker. Riding around feeling like John Gotti. Solo, ball like Tony Romo. Fuck that bitch in slow-mo. Left stains on my polo. Now my nerves, you getting on them. She want a vent, I just need that brain from her. She let me be like air drummer. I don't want her, so I sent it back to you. That bitch gave me top. You just bought her Lululemon. Keep racks in my denim. Black whip it look like venom. While I smoke this ganja, she blow like Osama. Black trucks like Obama. Sit back, count my car when slacked out. Watch her jaw drop when our police stacks out. Blow her back out, I make sure she tap out. And you gotta get your ass out. You just want some damn clout. Bitches, shut your damn mouth. See my diamonds flash, wow. I just watch my money pile. You gon' hear that engine growling. Tosina got me off balance. I can't claim that bitch, she wildin'. She say I'm her number one, but I know she lying though. You must think I'm stupid, huh? I know how this shit gon' go. Can't be tied down, baby. When you catch me, I'm dolo. Only 2 seats in this motherfucker. My Louis Duff will be riding shoddy. Only 2 doors on that motherfucker. Riding around feeling like John Gotti.
It's a little easier to listen to. Shorter. I like this track.
Or press 1 for more options.
Okay, well. I gotta go put a fucking band-aid on. Check.
Conversation right now all around the nation with Zohran Mamdani's victory. So I wanted to talk about the trials and tribulations of being a progressive mayor, especially in a city like Chicago. So we'll just dive right into that. You won after Lori Lightfoot, after a sequence of Chicago mayors that were establishment Democrats and ineffective for the most part. What have been some of the major hurdles that you had to overcome pushing an agenda that is more progressive than what most people would ever assume of a major city?
Well, first of all, it has been the joy of my life serving as mayor of one of the largest economies in the world, having started off my professional career as, someone who was involved in youth development and eventually became a public school teacher, organizer, and that led to sort of the political, aspirations that got us to this moment. I would just say that the big challenge for progressive leaders, progressive executives in particular, there aren't many examples and models. There's not a template, if you will, that we are afforded. It's like when I was a public school teacher, I had the veteran educators, so I wasn't necessarily creating lesson plans from scratch, right? Because there were those who had been there, done that. Some of the students, my colleagues, taught their parents and their aunts and uncles, right? So there's some familiarity there versus leading a major city like Chicago, where you had one family in particular that held the fifth floor for nearly 50 years combined, right? And so we're talking about several years, decades of institutional complacency that blocked out, what's sensible about politics, which is ensuring that everyday people, working people had access, right? So it was really just overcoming the fact that, one, there was no template, years of neglect. And then three, I was born into this work in the midst of crisis, and I'm happy to dig into that. But those have been three of the most, dynamic challenges that I've had to face as a progressive leader, particularly for a city like Chicago that hasn't had many examples.
What are some of the biggest setbacks, though, as far as like the alderman structure that exists? Like, I feel like there's a lot of power sharing that takes place, like, because most people think like all mayoral structures is identical, and yet I feel like Chicago is a little bit more decentralized as far as like the power sharing goes, right? Would you say, in comparison to like New York, for example?
Well, I think Chicago is unique in that the mayor, the executive, also presides over the legislative branch, which that, don't get any ideas, you all. That's working for me. But I would say that the hurdles or just the element of governance, the challenges there really are more connected to the animus towards the value system that I bring. Like the structure in and of itself does have some degree of impediment, right? But, our governmental structure is not necessarily, an idea that makes it impossible to lead. What I'm faced with right now is that the individuals that have had untethered access to the fifth floor now have to share it with working people.
Yeah. And they have been resistant.
I absolutely.
assume. What are some of the major battles as far as like advancing a more progressive agenda? Like, what were some of your goals in general? Because I know you tested out a pilot program for a pantry system, right, in the city. But what have been some of the major battles that you had to fight?
I mean, there's been a number of them. And let me just center it around what my ultimate vision for Chicago is. I'm working to build the safest, most affordable big city in America, right? I mean, you look at the other large cities, though that there's progress being made around safety. What good does it do to have a safe city, but working people cannot afford to live there? But vice versa, what's the point of having an affordable city if people don't feel safe? So everything that I've done has been centered around building safe and affordable communities. And those, battles have been everything from, me pushing for paid time off for workers, right? So we're the first big city in America to offer up 10 days of paid time off for over 1 million workers now benefit from that ordinance. We abolished the sub-minimum wage for tip workers. So tip workers will make the minimum wage that every other worker receives plus their tips. Those were some real major battles that I had to, overcome to get, our pro-worker agenda through. We've had some setbacks, right? I have this effort to increase the transaction tax on property that's worth more than $1 million. Yeah. But it required a ballot referendum. So we were able to pass it in city council to get it on the ballot, but we lost it at the ballot box during the election. I mean, it wasn't the best.
Imagine an end-of-year awards show for the most troubled nations on Earth. The award for most totalitarian probably goes to North Korea. The award for most chaotic goes to Myanmar. The award for most aggressive goes to Russia. And the award for most corrupt is, of course, awarded to South Sudan, albeit with some very, very stiff competition. China gets the nod for being most surveilled. The Central African Republic is deemed the worst place to settle down and start a family. And after lots of debate from the Academy, the United Arab Emirates are awarded this year's ultimate medalist award. But if we were handing out a trophy, a frontsie, if you will, we should do this, to the nation that's the most completely and totally then that award by a country mile goes to Peru. Now, for viewers who haven't checked in on Peru in a little while, can't blame you, we could see how that allegation might feel a little bit out of place. After all, this is the land of Machu Picchu, ceviche, and the natural beauty of Lake Titicaca, where gentle alpacas dot the landscape and rare pink dolphins swim in the rivers. No idea there were pink dolphins, but we've got a distinct suspicion that the Peruvians watching this episode know precisely what we are talking about, and that a fair number of them have already gone to the comment section and said something along the lines of,
"It's crusty and dirty."
Sounds about right. And that's because, for Peru's absolute miserable last decade, it's been embroiled in a never-ending crisis. Mix together one part instability, one part endemic corruption, one part violence, and you get the absolutely infernal witch's brew that is modern life in Peru. And worst of all,
looks
it
like
doesn't
another
seem
day
as
in
if any...
America. Baba, están acá.
Everybody's found the way out. Complete and total chaos. Now, at the outset of today's episode, we got to make one thing very clear. Despite the incredible number of problems that we're going to be laying out today, the nation of Peru actually does have a lot of things going for it. It's a nation that's undergone rapid development in the last several decades, a place with exceptionally abundant natural resources and a rich cultural heritage. It's got a young, growing population, and it's home to a stunning natural landscape and vibrant ecosystem. It's lucky enough to inhabit a corner of the world where even limited conflicts are relatively uncommon, and where all-out war is just practically unheard of. So, as we delve into the ongoing catastrophe that is modern-day Peru, we want to make it very clear that things do not have to be this way. Under better leadership, with better recent decisions, and
Bro, why are we listening to an English guy talk about Peru?
Dynamo on the world stage and a leader in Latin America. On the bright side, that means there's still hope for Peru to right the ship, but at the same time, it just has a way of making this entire situation more tragic. When we start to dig into Peru's many, many problems, we can start by homing in on an issue at the very top: chronic political instability. While it wouldn't be fair to say that all of Peru's modern problems trace back to its years under the late dictator Alberto Fujimori, modern Peru is a place that bears deep scars from Fujimori's time in office, as well as the other trials and turmoil of the 20th century. Like so many other nations that have tried to work their way back from authoritarianism, Peru has had
At least
to
the
undo
presidents
damage
aren't all pedophiles, right?
Instituting reforms at all levels and in all sectors of Peruvian society. But like other nations that have experienced something similar, the complexity of rebuilding Peru has meant that there are many, many moving parts, each of which represents a point of failure that can set Peru back for years if all goes wrong. And whether because
on the Epstein
various
list,
actors within Peru's political system, leaders who've looked at the Fujimori years and wondered whether they could claim that power for themselves, or sometimes just sheer bad luck, Peruvians have watched despairingly as more and more of those potential points of failure have buckled under pressure. After the collapse of the Fujimori regime in the year 2000, Peru went through about a decade and a half of attempts at political reform. The first few years, under long-time Fujimori rival Alejandro Toledo, saw Peru profit from an economic boom while it worked its way back into the global trade networks. But Toledo was horrifically unpopular by the end of his 5-year term, after weathering such an endless volume of political scandals that they would probably make for an episode all their own. Toledo, by the way, would be arrested in 2019 and extradited back to Peru from the United States, and is currently serving 33 years on corruption charges. Peru's next leader, Alan Garcia, was also the guy who had led Peru before Fujimori, but to his credit, his second term went a good deal better than his first attempt. From 2006 to 2011, he presided over impressive economic progress, with Peru eventually gaining recognition as Latin America's fastest growing economy. But by the time his term ended, he too was quite unpopular, tainted by corruption scandals that Peruvian voters agreed were among the worst in the country's history. He died in 2019 via a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head shortly before he would have been arrested on corruption charges. The guy after Garcia, former counterinsurgent leader and abortive anti-Fujimori coup leader, Ollanta Humala, was weak and deeply unpopular during basically his whole presidency, and he too would be arrested on corruption charges less than a year after the conclusion of his term. He was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in 2025. But if all of that already sounds bad enough, then strap the in, because it gets so much worse after that. In fact, as of now, Humala is the most recent Peruvian leader to serve a full term, and Peru's current political crisis began with the election that was meant to replace him. But by that time, another Fujimori had risen to political prominence in Peru, the former dictator's daughter Keiko, who led a right-wing party called the Fujimorist Popular Force. Although Fujimori the Younger was unable to secure the presidency in 2016 and still has never managed to ascend to Peru's highest office, she had already transformed herself into a powerful and obstinate opposition figure by that time. She and her allies had spent the last several years beating the most recent president, Ollanta Humala, into the ground at basically every opportunity, and in 2016, she was initially the odds-on favorite to win the presidency. Ultimately, though, her party was only able to secure a congressional majority, while her rival, Pedro Pablo Kaczynski, was able to ascend to the presidency. By the way, for the remainder of this episode, whenever we refer to a Peruvian politician named Fujimori, we're referring to Keiko Fujimori, not her father. With Kaczynski in control of the executive and Fujimori in control of the legislature, 2016 and 2017 would be a miserable couple of years for Peruvian politics. Kaczynski predictably was implicated in major corruption scandals, as had become the norm for post-dictatorship political leaders. The nation was paralyzed by major strikes. Kaczynski's own government was paralyzed by high-profile resignations, and the largest scandal that Peru had witnessed since the fall of the old dictatorship was uncovered by Brazil's Operation Car Wash, which was bringing down Kaczynski's predecessors and a range of other highly influential national elites. Under Fujimori's leadership, Kaczynski weathered his first impeachment attempt, also due to corruption allegations around the same major scandal, but then faced another impeachment scandal on credible allegations of vote buying. He was forced to resign. When Kaczynski left office, his first vice president, a former regional governor named Martin Vizcarra, ascended to the presidency in his stead. In a move that was both politically wise and probably, in theory, the right thing to do, Vizcarra immediately pivoted toward major anti-corruption reforms with the parallel objectives of cutting the rot out of his own political establishment and reining in the rival Fujimoristas. But despite initial optimism around Vizcarra, you'll notice that we mentioned that his anti-corruption efforts were the right thing to do in theory, because in reality, he quickly overplayed his hand, attempted to dissolve Peru's Congress, and in doing so picked a fight that he just wasn't going to win. Although he did declare the Congress dissolved, the Congress itself refused to recognize the choice, declared Vizcarra suspended from the presidency, and named his vice president, Mercedes Arauz, as Peru's new acting president. Then she declined to serve in the post in order to avoid causing an even larger political crisis, and resigned the vice presidency too. From there, Vizcarra would be accused by Peruvian media of attempting to rewrite the nation's constitution. He would preside over a disastrous outbreak of COVID in 2020 due to systemic issues in Peru that nobody had been able to solve, and he'd then face his first impeachment attempt, led by the brother of former President Humala, with Humala's brother orchestrating that impeachment effort from prison. If all of this is starting to get a little bit confusing, well, we'll refer you to the title of this episode, don't say we didn't warn you. If that first impeachment attempt had succeeded, then because Vizcarra had 0 remaining vice presidents at that time, instead of Peru's usual 2, the presidency would have gone to the new leader of Peru's Congress, Manuel Merino. Unfortunately for Merino, the first attempt failed. Vizcarra was accused of, you guessed it, corruption, but these particular charges didn't stick, mostly because Merino had apparently been reaching out to Peru's armed forces for support and quietly building his own replacement cabinet, which understandably made some lawmakers a bit nervous. Unfortunately for Vizcarra, he was also dealing with a second set of impeachment charges by that time, centered on his gross mismanagement of Peru's COVID response, and of course even more corruption, and 2 months after the first attempt to get rid of him, the second impeachment attempt stuck. That was enough to push congressional leader Manuel Merino to the presidency, but by that time, Merino had succeeded in making himself unbelievably unpopular, with a full 94% of Peruvians disapproving of his rise to the presidency by the time he was inaugurated. After 2 protesters were killed in demonstrations against his leadership, and most of his ministers resigned rather than work under him, Merino made the wise choice to resign his post after just 5 days. He would later be investigated for human rights violations. Because Peru still lacked any vice presidents, the presidency passed to a man who had just become the leader of Peru's Congress a couple of hours before being elevated to the presidency. Sagasti would finish out the remainder of his presidential term that had started in 2016 as the 4th person to serve as president during that 5-year span. During less than a year in office, Sagasti attempted a handful of reforms, primarily targeting Peru's national police, but he was stonewalled on most of his attempts. He weathered one of the more unique scandals in recent memory when the half-brother of his interior minister was revealed to be a leader of the Shining Path terrorist insurgency, and he failed to secure his own party's nomination in the 2021 election, meaning that the end of that term was the end of his presidency. You never guess what happened to him afterwards? Legal charges. In his case, because of alleged abuses of authority against high-ranking police and military leaders. Kind of refreshing that it wasn't corruption. After a tumultuous few years, Peru's 2021 election was nothing short of a clusterfuck. with Keiko Fujimori running against over a dozen other major candidates, who one regional expert described as including, quote, convicted felons, presumed money launderers, xenophobes, a fascist billionaire, an overrated and outdated economist, a retired mediocre footballer, a person accused of murdering a journalist, and other colourful figures. During the waning days of the election season, Fujimori's prospects would improve significantly after a mass killing in which 18 people were slaughtered and their bodies were left with pamphlets from Peru's Communist Party calling for a boycott of the elections and accusing Fujimori of treason. The increased public support for Fujimori in response to the attack and the damage to the image of her primary rival Pedro Castillo due to the association between Castillo and insurgent violence wasn't quite enough to hand Fujimori the presidency, but the election was close enough that the campaign season's hyper-polarized rhetoric and the black marks it left on both the leading candidates would set the tone for an even more bitter few years in the aftermath. Fujimori alleged numerous irregularities in the vote, but it ultimately wasn't enough to prevent her rival, former teacher and union leader Pedro Castillo, from claiming the presidency. A deepening crisis. In retrospect, the chaos and confusion of Peru's prior presidential term from 2016 to 2021 was tame in comparison to the madness that Pedro Castillo would usher in. Although Castillo had risen to prominence as a leader among ordinary people, spearheading a teacher strike in 2017 and then centering his campaign around Peru's under-resourced rural poor, he would ultimately turn out to be one of the leaders who is a far more effective candidate than he was a president. Like his predecessor during the last presidential term, Castillo came into office with a minority government, unable to unify enough of Peru's political parties around a common message.
I think I've noticed this pattern teachers become politicians sometimes.
Would to try and capture the support of evangelical groups and socially conservative political opponents, those efforts never amounted to anything more than the occasional breakthrough bill, usually dealing with minor issues. Instead, Castillo's time in office was characterized, at least in his first year, by sheer political chaos. Within a year of his inauguration, Castillo had left his own political party to lead as an independent. He managed at one point to go through 4 different governments within the span of just 6 months, and his cabinet, initially populated by leftist and even far-left political elements, evolved so far to the right that they basically constituted an abandonment of the same people who'd gotten Castillo elected. If those changes didn't lead to compromise, as Castillo might have hoped, but to a left wing that utterly disdained him as a traitor to his own cause, and a right wing
I don't want to die.
Manipulated. As all of this was going on, Castillo was still trying to manage the fallout of the COVID crisis that he had inherited, and he was also the man in charge when Peru was blindsided with another economic crisis. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Peru's economy took a nosedive as essential fuel and fertilizer prices became unsustainably high, just months after it had posted GDP growth of over 11%, prompting Castillo to raise taxes just in time for everyone. By April of 2022, inflation was reaching record highs, and a protest movement was sweeping the nation. And remember, this is all in the span of roughly a single year, during which time Castillo drove Peru's economy and its government into the ground with stunning efficiency. During that time, he was threatened with impeachment twice, although both attempts ultimately failed. But the real madness of Pedro Castillo's time in office came at the end of 2022. At that time, Castillo was under investigation for impeachment for the 3rd time in response to numerous allegations of corruption and scandals involving Castillo and his inner circle. Nationwide protests were still growing in their intensity. The Fujimori faction in Peru's Congress was still as powerful as ever, and Castillo's public approval was as low as any of Peru's other recent presidents' approvals had been during their darkest days. By late 2022, Peru's own Attorney General had accused Castillo of leading a criminal organization and called for his removal, with Castillo claiming that her efforts constituted a coup d'etat. When Castillo's 3rd round of impeachment charges hit, he was subject to 6 different criminal investigations at once. He had churned his way through 5 different cabinets, and he had spent less than 18 months in the presidency. But in the spirit of at least minimum fairness to Castillo, the crisis that ultimately brought him down wasn't a crisis that he started directly. In Peru, the Congress gets to nominate members of the nation's constitutional court, and earlier in 2022, 6 of the court's 7 members had been replaced by the Congress in an attempt to gain indirect leverage over government institutions. That newly antagonistic court
I just gotta start. Honestly, I gotta become the president of Peru. That's it. I just gotta do it.
With Castillo over confidence, and through a process that would probably take more time to explain than it's worth, those scraps eventually created conditions under which Castillo
make it happen somehow.
Get a legal opportunity to dissolve the Congress. Of course, as Castillo was planning to get rid of them, they were planning to get rid of him, creating such tensions that Peru's chief of the Joint Command warned military leaders that the country was about to be hit by an internal leadership crisis and possibly an internal conflict. On the same day the Peru's Congress was about to censure Castillo, Castillo unilaterally dissolved the Congress, ordered a nationwide curfew, claimed emergency powers, directed the military to stay off the streets, and ordered citizens to give up weapons to the national police. It was a highly dramatic play, but it didn't go the way that Castillo seemed to be expecting. Instead, his actions were condemned almost universally and very quickly as an attempted self-coup, or that is to say using the state's levers of power as an elected head of state to assume a head of state position with far greater or more expansive powers than what's constitutionally allowed. The majority of Castillo's latest cabinet resigned rather than follow his orders. Peru's autonomous ombudsman called his actions an attempted coup, and his vice president,
I gotta go
Dina
to China,
Boluarte,
guys. I'm
turned
gonna
on
see
as
what
well,
it's like there.
aided, of course, by the nation's
I don't fuck with
constitutional
her.
court. The nation's Congress met as they had initially planned to
with her,
do,
bro.
and in the span of a single session, Castillo was censured, impeached, and removed from office. His impeachment passed by a stunning margin, 101 votes in favor and 6 against. According to Peru's successor government, Castillo tried unsuccessfully to flee the country. Instead, he would be arrested, tried for rebellion, and in 2025 he was sentenced to about 11.5 years in prison after being hospitalized for a failed 3-day hunger strike. With Castillo out of office, Peru's presidency transferred to Dina Boluarte, the first woman to ever lead Peru and a career officer at Peru's National Registry of Identification and Civil Status, until Castillo had elevated her to the vice presidency and ministerial position in 2022. Ideologically, Boluarte was far from a successor to the far leftist Marxist-Leninist ideology of Castillo's Free Peru party, but she was a perfect successor for the right-leaning, highly appeasement-oriented presidency that Castillo evolved into during the last months of his time in office. To put it generously, Boluarte was not a person Peruvians particularly wanted to see leading their country. She had published a book in 2004 that was later found to be over 50% plagiarized. She had lost the only 2 elections that she'd ever taken part in, at the mayoral and then the congressional level, and she had some very clear ties with Peru's corrupt elite even before she ascended to the presidency. Then, barely a month after she made history as Peru's first woman president, she made history in another way by becoming the first and so far only woman president of Peru to be accused of genocide. During this time, Peru was still dealing with its popular protest movement, with some protesters proudly declaring themselves to be an insurgency and others led by autonomous peasant groups known as rondas campesinas, engaging in regular anti-government strikes. These protests were present everywhere. Peru's response to the protests under Boluarte was far from uniform. The region that got it worst was Puno, a southern inland region where poorer indigenous communities make up the local majority. As the protest picked up momentum in Puno, looting and vandalism became common, military and police crackdowns became ever more serious in response, and street clashes just became commonplace. Elsewhere in the country, on the 15th of December 2022, soldiers carried out a massacre in the city of Achoco, where 10 people were killed from helicopters during a protest, and from there, the situation worsened substantially. The violence culminated in an event known today as the Juliaca Massacre on the 9th of January 2023, just weeks into Boluarte's time as president. During the massacre, at least 18 civilian demonstrators were shot and killed by the Peruvian
I just gotta become
president, most
president.
of them either being ethnic Aymara members of the indigenous population or Bolivians living on Peruvian soil. Because the massacres involved the killings of minority groups by state forces and the injuries of over 100 others in a region where armed forces often engage in anti-indigenous violence, the massacres have since been condemned by human rights and advocacy groups across the globe. But Boluarte's response to the protest movement, as with most of what she'd ultimately do and say during her time in power, was far from what Peruvians might have expected from their leaders. After declaring a state of emergency and postponing elections for 2 years, Boluarte had expressed to the global media that she didn't understand why anybody would protest against her and advocated in favor of actions by soldiers and police that had been roundly condemned as state repression. Boluarte accused Bolivia of fomenting the protests and appointed officials who clearly intended to treat the protest movement as an internal insurgency.
Oh my fucking god, I don't care anymore. I just don't care about it. News, really. Tired of it. So done with it.
Boy, it's been a while, hasn't it? So you're probably already aware about the whole Discord situation in which they're enacting a whole real ID system where you have to send in your face scan or whatever not to verify that you're an adult to use their platform now. Yeah, no. Wasn't it that 5 months ago that you just had a data breach of over 70,000 IDs leaked to hackers and you want us to trust you with more data? I don't think so. But of course, they're saying, yeah, everything is going to be fine. It's only in the UK. It's not being introduced into the US yet, but best believe that's also going to come over here because guess what? They're going for an IPO, so they want things to look as best as possible for the investors, saying that we have child safety protection countermeasures in place, so it's all good. And the investors, that's all they need to hear. They don't need to see the the actual users who are actually using this and their reaction to any of this, because they simply don't care. And my question to Discord then is, why should we? Why should we care even more about a platform that continuously does the most it can to put our data and our privacy at risk? But I hear what you're saying, there's not really that many options out there, and you're kind of right, Honestly, I've actually been looking for a Discord replacement for a while now, probably like close to like 6 years actually. I got close to a couple of options, but honestly, not everything hits all of the beats that Discord does. And let's be honest, Discord actually does a really good job of what they do in specific aspects of making things easier and building community aspects that we actually do love. We just hate the systems around it that is pretty much making things worse as the days goes on. So with all that being said, what else is out there? Well, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of other alternative Discord platforms that you might want to consider. First up, let's start with Matrix. Now, Matrix, I personally have run for about 8 years, actually. I have used it for chat for me and my fiance. I was actually going to deploy for my family, but that's a whole different story, which regardless of what alternative Discord platform you go for, you're going to have probably an even harder time of trying to convince your community to migrate over to it. But that aside, Matrix actually performed relatively well for me. You can self-host it and you can actually use multiple clients with it. The stock option is a client called Element, which is actually provided by the Matrix Foundation itself. But personally, I used a different client called Schildy Chat. Terrible name, terrible logo. Let's move on. And ultimately, while it doesn't offer a one-to-one experience like Discord, it gets pretty far. For the most part, it looks very polished.
Back to music. As long as you made it, so I don't get copyrighted. So it's like by a label, a big label, no. But the genre does not matter.
It performs relatively well. I get my notifications. It does voice chat. Pretty much most of the standard offering that you're looking for in a chat app is actually there. You can even do video and voice calls via Jitsi. But I think they're changing away from Jitsi, but don't quote me on that one. More on Jitsi later, by the way. You even have the option of federating with other services like Discord and even WhatsApp. So if Matrix is pretty good, why am I not using it anymore? Well, for starters, slow progression in the way that it's been improving. Like after 8 years, you're telling me you still don't have custom emojis? And yes, I get it that things have to be checked against the protocol because ultimately, yes, Matrix is a protocol like email and everything like that, and you have a lot of checks and balances to actually go for before you implement these changes into the protocol at large and everything. But come on, it's emojis. Why can't we have custom React and emojis after 8 years? I mean, we've been asking for it for years. It's still an open issue in the forums. It makes no sense to me. There's other things also like the funding for the foundation itself. It has been in a pretty questionable state. There's also the whole CSAM issue that happened on the matrix.org server. Yeah. And on the self-hosted side, it is honestly a bit heavy. Honestly, I think my instance was averaging like about 9 gigs just on idle alone.
Yeah, I don't think I can stream right now. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like, fuck this. I need to stare at the wall. Like dead ass. And you just stare at the wall. Speak with some inner demons. So I'm not gonna. I'll be back. See you later. Not a good time.